Roger Pekuri was a 7-time cross-country, Nordic skiing, and track and field letter winner at Michigan Tech from 1969 to 72. Roger was co-founder of the cross-country running program in 69 and the Nordic ski team in the winter of 69-70. He and the Huskies placed second in the NIC cross-country championships in their first season. Roger won the U.S. Ski Association Central Division Championship during the 71-72 season, went on to the Olympic trials in 72 and 76. A lifelong endurance athlete, Roger was a silver medalist at the 1976 U.S. National Ski Championships. We've got several great stories from Roger's teammates. We have time for a couple of them here. First one is from NMU Nordic ski coach, former NMU Nordic ski coach Sten Feldheim. During the ski season of 76, the U.S. Ski Nationals were held in Big Sky, Montana. I supported Roger out on the trails to hand him some fluid replacement during the 50 kilometers. This was a 10K loop, so I'd be running back and forth on a little section of trail that allowed me to feed Roger twice on each lap if he needed it. After lap 1, Roger was in around 10th place, which I thought was pretty darn respectable. Snow had started coming down and intensified each lap. By lap 4, it was hard to see the skier's race bib number. By the last lap, I could see Roger still looking good, and as he skied past me, I took a time split off the skier who I know was leading. As Roger skied past me heading on to the last lap, I was so excited, I shouted, "Roger, you're in 5th place, and you're still looking fresh." Well, Roger finished in 2nd place. I guess the snowstorm only made the race that much harder, which I believe motivated Roger even that much more. A silver medal for the U.S. Senior Nationals, not bad, eh? This made an impact on me and a lifelong respect for my good friend, Roger Pekuri. Roger's brother, Gordano, weighed in. Yes, my brother won a lot of races and accomplished many feats. I'm not surprised. When Roger and I were around 10 or 11 years old, we spent time at a Boy Scout camp. Of course, we did all the normal Boy Scout things, including moving logs and learning to work as a team. My dad came to pick us up, and I remember him walking up to the car chuckling. He looked at me and said, "The camp counselors called little Roger Little Herc, as in Hercules." Although he and I were small in stature, he was a strong little guy. And knowing how stubborn he is, I knew early on he could do anything he set his mind to, and he has. So here's to you, Little Herc. One final story from Duncan McLean. Start fast and pick it up. This was Roger's response to me when I asked him how to approach running a marathon. Start fast and pick it up. Seemed a little aggressive, but then Roger never fretted the details of excessive distance or discomfort. Maybe it's that Sisu thing. It certainly is a tech thing, where you dig into any task no matter how difficult and finish it without complaint. We eagerly followed Roger in many ways, including on 3-hour training runs, where we'd leave a perfectly civilized road and go into a thicket where only Brett Rabbit and Roger could run. There are those now who have never heard of Roger, but who follow in his pioneering footsteps. While a student at Michigan Tech, he didn't let a little obstacle like not knowing how to ski stop him from establishing a Nordic team. Once he graduated, Roger didn't set out to change competitive skiing in the Midwest, but he surely did. There were university and high school-based clubs and teams and a smattering of older folks at various races. Absent were the 20 and 30-year-old individuals who aspired to leap beyond the local levels towards international competition. Roger changed that. He vaulted directly from community races to the U.S. Nationals and, as you've heard, stood on the 50K podium. Roger absorbed us into his culture. When his Datsun became overfull, we'd cram into Gordy's car for long hauls essentially from coast to coast, wherever the competition was. To those training mates who were younger than him, which was all of us, we couldn't have had a more perfect leader and example as we navigated the occupation of professional Nordic ski athlete. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Michigan Tech Sports Hall of Famer, Roger Pekuri.
Thank you. You know, Jim earlier said that I should make this short. Well, that's easy for me. I am short. You know, I'm astounded to be here. I don't think even Walter Mitty had a dream about this. But those guys standing or sitting over there, I think they had the dream for me. It's sort of funny, growing up, I don't know, I was meant to be an engineer because I was always sort of thinking ahead in my mind. And I sort of knew I was going to go to college. And why? Because my dad went to college, first in his Finnish-American family. He did that after serving in France and Germany all the way to Berlin on the front lines during World War II. And I thought to myself, well, Dad went to college, I had to go to college. Well, we visited up here with my grandparents, when I was 11. We looked at the Seaman Rock Museum. We came out, and my grandmother said, well, are you going to come to school here? Yeah, I think I might. I had little idea that I would. It seemed growing up I had like two roads I was traveling at once. One was an academic. I don't know why, but I think I was always inspired to be studying. And I kept at it, but I didn't want anybody to know what my grades were. I just kept it to myself. And when I got to high school in Menominee, Michigan, and I just transferred there from Lower Michigan. Thank goodness we got to the UP back. We're from the UP. And I figured, well, I better get some scholarships to go to school, because I'm the oldest of 6, and that's the only way I'm going to school. Well, I did get scholarship opportunities from Tech in the state of Michigan to come here, and also to go out east to Troy, New York, to Rensselaer Polytech. And one of my high school math teachers and physics teachers was prodding me to go to Rensselaer because he's already sent 2 of his students to Rensselaer. And I thought, why would I go out east when I can go to Tech? That's when Yogi Berra came on. You know, he was the catcher for the Yankees. He had a lot of quotes, but one of them always struck me as funny. When he had come to a fork in the road, take it. Well, I looked at that fork and I took the fork to Tech. And it didn't take me long to realize that once I was up here, this was the school for me. I mean, it was serious, hard work, didn't mind studying. The library, government docks area was my favorite place to go because it was quiet. And all the years, all the quarters, except for the first 2 that I was out for a sport, my priorities were studying. Those were my priorities. That's why I came to Tech. But I used the sports to balance that. Healthy body, healthy mind. And so that's the way I approached it. On the sports side of things, growing up, I wanted to be a football and basketball player. They said, kid, don't smoke. It'll stunt your growth. Well, you can see that worked. But I went out for junior high football, and I put the pads on and a helmet, and I looked in the mirror, and I couldn't see me. Now, I had fun that season, but I crossed off football. Nope, not going to happen. But I did play junior high JV basketball, and I was going out for my as a junior for the varsity team. And I thought, I need an edge. That's where Yogi says, there's a fork in the road, you better take it. So I went out for cross-country running. I never dreamed of running distance. That wasn't in my mind a bit. But I went out, I actually started training that summer to get in shape for the early workouts, just to keep up. And my brother Gordy came out. In my high school in Menominee had a pretty good team. But all of a sudden, when we came out, we had a wonderful team. And it was fun. It was just plain fun. It opened my eyes to this whole different sport that I had never thought about. And training was not hard. It was fun. And we had fun as a good group of guys. And that year, we were undefeated going into the UP championships. Well, we took second to Ishpeming. But that's okay. Ran track the next spring. We did really good. The track team liked us distance guys because we brought in points. And the next year, senior year, cross country, we were undefeated. We won the UPs. In fact, one of the last meets we did was a couple teams from Lower Michigan that were top ranked came up to run us because they heard about us, and we beat them. And we were a ragtag looking bunch, but we could run. And in the 3 years that my brother Gordy ran cross country and track, he was undefeated. And he went on to Mankato State on a running scholarship. Well, I came here as an academic, he went on to running. In his first season at Mankato State, he made the traveling team. And I'll be dang, but Mankato State won the Division II NCAA championships that year. And he's in the Hall of Fame over there. Well, when I got to Tech, there was no cross-country running or skiing, but there's track, and we ran track. And Brucey and I were on that team and made the traveling team, and we brought in points for the team, and it was fun. In the fall, when I came back to Tech for my sophomore year, they decided to start a cross-country running team. And all of us high school runners decided, great, we'll go out. And it was a low-budget affair, trust me. And we didn't have team uniforms. We were a pretty rough-looking group. But we started going to meets, and we started winning them. And our goal was to put Tech on the map, in our own little way. And we trained a lot. And we had a coach in Rex Benoit. Now, Rex was older. His background was football. But we ran our own practices. And Rex would come with us to the meet. And we really liked Rex. His favorite answer to any question, yep. But that got to be fun. It was just like high school again. We were sort of the ragtag-looking bunch that won the meets. For 3 years we ran cross country, and we belonged to a conference in Minnesota. And the perennial champ of that conference was St. Cloud State. And we were getting closer every year. The last year, we only took runner-up by 2 points. And considering that one of our best runners transferred from Tech back to Ohio. Now, why anybody would go back to Ohio, I have no idea. But, we felt good. When Tech came to town for a meet, they knew who we were. That was the fun of it. And the fun was looking so, well, almost like Hex, and then blowing them away. With cross-country skiing, after that first year of cross-country running, end of the season, Tech decided to reestablish the cross-country ski team. I had never heard of cross-country ski racing. I had never seen anybody cross-country ski. One of our members, Gary Gallagher, had been in the Army Biathlon unit. And he came to Tech, ran on our team, and he said, Roger, you have to go out. Gary, I don't know anything about it. He says, come up to my apartment and look at my skis. And I get up there, and he's got a brand new pair of Norwegian Splitkin racing skis. And I was just starting to alpine ski with these old wooden skis I bought secondhand. And I looked at them, they were skinny, and they were light, and they're beautiful. And I said, is this what you ski on? Then I thought of Yogi. Yep, there's a fork, take it. I said, I'm in. So I go to, Fred Longsdorff was the overall coach at the time, ski coach. Went to the chalet at Mount Ripley. And what do I get? I don't get Splitkin racing skis. I get a cut-down pair of Army skis painted yellow. They were solid hickory, but you couldn't break them. That was good because we're all beginners. And, well, that's all we got. Oh, I got a box of waxes. And he said, here's my waxing lesson. See, these are called tins. You just read the label, it'll tell you what temperature and what kind of snow to use them on. And here's a cork, and it was a real cork, not the synthetic stuff they have nowadays. And here's tubes of Clister, and they're for warm weather. And we were off. That's how it started. And there was only 3 of us, 2 runners and 1 Norwegian who didn't train much, but he knew how to ski. And there weren't many college races in those days. There just wasn't. But I started getting into USSA races, local races. We had one race at the end of the year, and Clister came. It was the first warm day we had, and nothing worked. And I was looking at these tubes of Clister, and I said, red Clister, okay. And I put it on pretty sparingly. The other guys found out that I had grip where they didn't, so they wanted to borrow it. Well, I never thought about telling them how to put it on because I didn't know how to put it on. But once we got in the woods and it was colder, everybody was clogging up with snow. But I had put it on so thin that I could knock that snow off with every stride. Anyway, they were sort of ticked off at me, but I think I won the race. But the years of skiing at Tech, the next year I got about, I don't know, 5 or 6 of the cross-country runners to come out. And we're all beginners, and it was a great time because we're all learning. But our advantage was we trained, even back then, year-round. Skiers in those days didn't train in the spring and summer. They started in the fall. But we were running spring and fall. We were in shape, running cross-country in the fall. And you get to ski season, it's trying to learn how to ski. And it took a long time. There's a finesse to skiing. It's not just slogging down the trail on your boards. It's a real art. And so, skiing opened up my eyes to another sport besides cross-country running or distance running. And it was a love of the endurance and the beauty, and there is a beauty in skiing cross-country. There's a technique. And if you see skiers nowadays you get to see cross-country skiers on TV. In the old days you didn't. And I mean, I look at it and I look at their technique, and they're just beautiful. Now, I left Tech with an engineering degree, civil, and one of the things I liked about Tech was the civil engineering folks. We always said, Tech engineers aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. And when I got into my career and worked with engineers from other schools, invariably the engineers from Tech, they knew what they were doing. And when they showed up on a job site, they weren't in their office clothes. They had boots on and blue jeans. And I really respected that. And I think Tech really prepared us civil engineers well, even back 50 years ago. The funny thing is I kept running after college, and to my amazement, I was working out of St. Paul. I'd come home during the winter, eat, change clothes, and go skiing in the dark, not lit trails, in the dark. But there was enough glow from the city that you could sort of make out the trail. And I just kept skiing, and I'd race on weekends. And they had the Nationals there that year. So I signed up. I figured I had nothing to lose. And I forget exactly, I'd skied the 15 and 30K, and I was 24th in one and 18th in the other. And I thought, well, that's not too bad for a beginner at the Nationals. And the next year I took the winter off. I managed to convince my employer, let me take the winter off so I can ski race, and started traveling and going to the Nationals. I went to the Nationals every year then up until 1980. And right around 75 or 76, Stan and Duncan and Steve Pittman, AKA Ski Equipment, we started traveling together, and our goal was to put the Midwest on the map again. The Midwest used to have good skiers, but there was a lull. And by golly, by the end of the 70s, even the U.S. ski team was starting to take notice of what we were doing. And then after us, there was a whole bunch of younger skiers that came up. And we'd like to think that we were sort of the example that got them going. The other thing, when I turned 30, I finally went to work full time. So my mother's friends were saying, well, shouldn't Roger get a real job? Well, I had a job. The U.S. Forest Service stuck their neck out and hired me permanent part-time. And so I always had a job to go back to. I just had to save every penny I had so I could spend it all winter. And it's not like being ski bums with the alpine scene. We were serious about it, and we trained hard. And it was fun. But after I turned 30, eventually ended up in Ironwood, got involved with their ski club. I ended up being in charge of the trails, one, because I knew about trails, I raced, and two, I was an engineer, and I knew how to build things. And we improved their 5K loop to take in skating and classic. And I had been to Finland already, and I saw their trail systems. And we went from the chalet, now we went to Powderhorn ski area, Alpine, and over to a ski shop. In other words, you build trails to go places. 89, I went up to Ely, Minnesota. In that first winter, friends asked me if I'd join a small group of guys to talk about forming the first ever cross-country ski club in Ely. Ely had a lot of skiers in the past, but nothing was organized. We had a public meeting in the fall, and everybody came out that were skiing, touring. And we started a ski club. And then from there, because I had the experience, I ended up being in charge of their trails. But it goes beyond that. I got into race directing. That's giving back to the sport. I did a lot of races, but to be on the end where you're organizing and running the race, that's just as satisfying. And the other thing that happened, we started, I had this idea in Ironwood of teaching kids, and I had a little program set up. Went up to Ely, I suggested that we start doing the same thing. And we got affiliated with the Minnesota Ski League, and that's for kids 4 to 13. In that first year, I thought we'd have 20, but then we had 50 show up. The next year, we had 75. The year after that, 125. And we had all these volunteer coaches. And the idea was to teach them how to ski, but also to have fun. And I coached the older kids, skating and classic, but I concentrated on classic. Classic is much harder. And they were getting really good. In fact, the parents were starting to come to ski other days, and they're complaining to me that they couldn't keep up to their kids. And that's a good thing. But eventually the older kids graduated, so to speak, from the program. And a couple of us went to the school to talk to the superintendent and the athletic director. And they were not too pleased about thinking about adding a sport to their program, but they agreed to add girls cross-country skiing. But not funded by the school, but funded by donations by the team. And you wouldn't believe all the donations we got from all the skiers. And those kids started doing really well. In Minnesota, high school ski racing is a one class system. We were skiing against all the big schools from the cities and the Iron Range. And pretty soon, our girls are bumping up. They're getting like number 10 overall, number 5, and 2 years in a row, they were number 2 in the state. And then the boys, because of their success, were able to get varsity status. And again, we had to fund it. And it was the same thing. I had those kids in ski league, and some kids you can just tell they want to do more than the ski league. And we never prodded them about racing, we never talked about racing, but I taught them technique like they were racing. And I especially loved teaching how to run the downhills. And a lot of what I learned on downhills was being here at Michigan Tech with the Alpine team and them telling me their secrets on going downhill, especially on downhill skiing. And that stuck with me all those years. And it was the little secrets that I knew that I passed on to these kids. There's also all sorts of things I passed on to their kids. And the boys, back in around 2000 or so, they won the state meet. And Ely's been on the map in Minnesota ever since for cross-country skiing. So, it's a life sport. It all started here with skiing at Michigan Tech. I'm really pleased to see it. I thank Cal Larson and his folks for the information they send out. I get all sorts of emails on the different teams and how they're doing. We never had that back then. We were at Tech, we were competing, we were winning. Nobody knew it. But now they know. Everybody knows how the teams are doing, no matter what sport. And even back then, when we were running, I used to think, looking at the top 5 guys, I'll bet if you added up our GPAs, would be one of the highest in the nation. And guess what? Nowadays, the teams have tremendous GPAs. It's something about the endurance sports that attracts studious people, I guess. All right, I gotta go. Mikey Usatello's name was mentioned. Is he back there?
Yep.
Can you stand up? Mike, when I was going to Tech, we would run down to D Stadium with a quarter to get standing room tickets. and you were playing hockey then, and you were good, but you were from the copper country and playing hockey for Tech. You were our hero.